Good day. It depends on when you're watching this, whether it's evening, morning, whenever. We're sitting here, myself and Max Gabovitch, behind the press conference table at Bankers Life Fieldhouse, where Tom Crean sat minutes before. It's a big game, a close loss, Max, really tough loss. I believe 88-86 was the final to Butler. IU goes down for the first time this year. In overtime. Just an outstanding game. There's too much to get in all at once. So let's start off. How did we get to that overtime game? I mean, just talk about the way we saw IU perform throughout, the way Butler came back. Just talk about the game as we got to that overtime period.
It was very back and forth. Very back and forth. The Hoosiers led at halftime. They were up by 7, I believe, and Butler cut it to 4 right before the half. And the rebounding was huge, especially in the first half. Butler was phenomenal on the boards. The Hoosiers really, really struggled. You see at the final, Cody Zeller has 5 rebounds. That's usually not going to do it for you. Farrell is your leading rebounder, which is probably a problem. We saw Tom Crean. He talked about they're going to be doing plenty of rebounding drills in practice. That was big. And even when you look at the final stats, 38 rebounds for IU and 40 for Butler. It's not that big a difference, but it really doesn't tell the story. 19 offensive rebounds for Butler to 18. But Butler was getting second chance points with those rebounds. They were putting him back in the hoop. 10 more second chance points.
And what the box score will not show is that Butler had a really distinct advantage in the first half play, as you mentioned. I mean, Butler absolutely beat up the Hoosiers on the glass. Verdell Jones came on Twitter and said something that a lot of IU fans noticed, that they were going to be doing some football rebounding drills the day after in practice. And Tom Crean even referenced that in the press conference, that he was excited to get to work on rebounding, and that not a lot of other people would share that sentiment. That's never something you want to hear as a player, Max, but as we saw today, it might be needed. Let's talk about some more what we saw in the overtime, particularly, when IU manages to tie this up. They tie the game up. Let's actually rewind a little bit. It makes sense to rewind because IU's down 6 points with 2:30 to go. I mean, 2:30 to go. People are ready to put this game away. People are saying that IU has lost it. That Butler has looked great. They look tough. IU manages to come back. Let's talk about the defensive pressure that we saw that got them back in this game.
It was terrific, the way that the Hoosiers pressed. We saw Tom Crean. He talked about afterwards that he wishes he would have gone to it a little bit sooner because it obviously helped them a lot. They forced a couple turnovers with that pressure. It really just kept them in the game because before they were pressing, Butler was really pulling away, and it did look like that game was over.
They somehow managed to get it to a 3-point game. Kellen Dunham, normally Mr. Automatic at the foul line, misses a second free throw, keeps it to within 3. And Yogi Ferrell, who's hit all of maybe 2 3-pointers, 2 or 3 all year, manages to drain a clutch 3 with time running out. Butler goes back down, misses a shot to send it to overtime. IU scores the first 4 points, or close to that. They had a 4-point lead in overtime, 84-80. And Butler comes back, and they managed to take a lead on IU. Talk about what they did to turn the tide.
Well, they hit a couple of threes. There were some miscommunications on defense with the Hoosiers, not getting out on the perimeter. A couple of threes for Butler, kept them in it in overtime. And then we saw the walk-on. Can't even think of his name.
I think it's Alex Barlow.
Alex Barlow, that's great.
Alex Barlow for 100. Alex, I think. Yeah. No,
yeah.
He's a sophomore walk-on.
He's a sophomore walk-on. And he gets in the lane and put it up where it had a chance to go in, and he got it bounce off the rim, and it goes in.
Got 2 or 3 bounces.
Well, yeah.
It goes in with like 2 seconds remaining. Jordan Hulls gets it inbounds, flings it at the rim, goes begging, and Butler's players rushed the floor. It was outstanding. It was a big win for them. Tough loss for IU. There were some positives for IU, though. You mentioned Cody Zeller. He seems to have found his stroke at the line, 10 of 14 for the game. A lot of free throws. And Victor Oladipo, apologies to Brad Stevens and Roosevelt Jones, who did play outstanding basketball. Victor Oladipo was the best player on the floor for an extended period of time today.
He was. And his defense continues to impress me throughout the season. I'd be shocked if he doesn't win Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year.
He was great.
We haven't even got to the Big Ten schedule, but what he's doing is absolutely amazing.
I mean, just beginning the game, Rodney Clark has Victor Oladipo on him. He didn't get a shot off for the first 10 minutes of play. Will Sheehy gets on him. Clark gets free, starts breathing. Oladipo gets back in, strips him, goes to the other end for a dunk. That was what Victor Oladipo brought to the table today. But it unfortunately was not enough. He mentioned that. Moving forward, Max, we talked about rebounding. What are some other things this team needs to work on as it goes forward? They've got some time before the next big-time game. They go to Iowa December 31st. But they've got some games now to work on some things and get this team back where it needs to be.
Yeah, they've got a couple games this week that they can work on. They've got Mount St. Mary's and then Florida Atlantic. So those two teams are obviously inferior opponents. I mean, I think that's fair to say. And I think they need to go to Zeller more. I think, first of all, he was getting to the line. He was finding a way to score. And he struggled in the first half. He was 2 of 5 from the free throw line. Finishes 10 of 14, though. And I don't know.
Not a bad second half.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened at halftime, but something helped out Cody Zeller. He found his stroke. If he can keep doing that and they keep going to him, I don't think there's a team that can stop him in the post without fouling him on a consistent basis. And if he's getting fouled and he's going to the line and making them, it's a really tough team to beat.
And Butler made sure to give IU credit afterwards. Brad Stevens still thinks that IU is the team to beat. He said earlier in the week that he thinks they're the best team in the country and that it's not even close. Butler made quite a claim for themselves today as a really good team. Tom Crean said as much. He gave them credit in this seat, and I'll do the same, Max. I mean, what did we see from Butler in just so many phases of the game? They played like a really well-coached team out there.
And there were quite a few times where they could have let the game get away, and they didn't. Especially, I thought, at the end of that first half when the Hoosiers got to a 7-point lead, and it seemed like they had a chance to push it up, but Butler wouldn't go away. They hit a 3 to make it 4. I think that was big right before the half. To have it 4 instead of 7, it's not a huge difference, but they had that momentum coming into the second half. They realized they could play with this team, and they continue to do it in the second half. I think Rodney Clark is an amazing shooter.
I want to see him and Jordan Hulse play a game of horse or something.
that would be fun. That would be very fun. He had a couple threes that I was shocked he took, but he made them. He makes them anyways. He's a tremendous shooter. Roosevelt Jones, if he could have stayed out of foul trouble, he was unstoppable. Really.
He played 29 minutes, and like you said, he almost finished with a triple-double.
Yeah, he was 3 assists shy of a triple-double, 16 points, 12 rebounds, 7 assists, and they just kept going to him. Him against Hulse was a mismatch, and there was no stopping him with Hulse on him. But he's a great player. Roosevelt Jones is a very talented player.
Yeah, so again, a lot of credit to Butler. A lot of things for IU to work on going forward. Next game we'll see them play is at Assembly Hall against Mount St. Mary's. I believe that's the 19th of December. A few more days to work on that. Practice probably not going to be so fun, I wouldn't imagine. Well, that's about all the time we have here. Max, any final thoughts before we send it off?
I don't think so. I think the only thing is this is not the end of the road for the Hoosiers. They have 1 loss, and it'll definitely help them in the long run.
Yeah, we might be wrong. We might have the Mayan apocalypse a little earlier than expected. We might not see IU play another game. If that's not the case, these guys are still one of the best teams in the country. I would think that, Max, you're right. They're going to be okay. Deep breaths, Hoosier Nation. We'll get through it together. For Max Gabovitch, I'm Jimmy Cavanaugh, saying good night. Travel well. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time against Mount St. Mary's. Take care.